You can call me Moxie. Wow, filming 2 YouTube videos in a month. Look at me go. So I like listening to some of the creators I enjoy just talk about their perspectives on certain things, even if I may not always have the same perspective. It's nice to think about things from a different angle. I enjoy listening to a good yap every now and again, and it's also fun to share a yap. So I guess that's what I'm gonna do in this video, is just yap a little bit. Something that has been on my mind, I think I've touched on it before. There have been some content creators, mainly on YouTube, that I've seen that become very personally hurt when they realize their audience starts leaving, maybe stops engaging as much. Some can take it very personally to the point where they feel betrayed. If content creation is tied to money for you, that's its own discussion, especially if content creation is your sole source of income. I'm not speaking on the money aspect. That is its own thing, and that requires a different headspace, a different kind of attention. I'm just speaking on the validation aspect that I've heard certain content creators be honest about, how sometimes they feel like they rely on the audience for a sense of personal validation. Some would mention also viewing audience retention as a direct measure of their self-worth. When I started Awaken Moxie, I already had this train of thought in mind. Think of any content creator or artist that you were really super into for a very long time. Maybe some of them got canceled, but I'd wager a majority of these creators, nothing specific happened. It's just time passed. Maybe their content changed a little, you got busy with other things, and before you know it, you realize right now, in this moment, might be the first time you've remembered this content creator that you were super into a couple years ago. And nothing really happened, it's just you guys were on the same wavelength for a time, and then life happened, and now you're not. So I can think of certain artists that I have merch for, and they were really important to me, I guess defining moments in my life. But for no reason in particular, no bad blood, I just haven't really thought of them in the same way for a long time. That doesn't negate the positive impact they had on my life, and if I think about them again, then I can remember the times fondly. And sometimes I can still check out, maybe they're still releasing things, they're still making stuff, and I can still check back in and appreciate it. So like I said, when I started Awaken Moxie, why would I expect anything to be different? I've mentioned in previous YouTube videos that I welcome anybody to come when they're ready to hang out, and if they're going to be floating away into different spheres of the internet, that makes sense. And if you happen to circle back around, hello, welcome back. So I feel kind of bad when I see certain content creators getting really shaken up about maybe not having as big of an audience as they once did, or just not connecting with their audience in the same way. If that makes them sad, of course I understand, but I don't want them to doubt their sense of self-worth because of that. I know there are people who were really rocking with my OCs for a while, like we were really on the same wavelength, and I'm sure a lot of those people, time has passed and they might have just completely forgotten I exist. Again, for no negative reason, that's just what happens with life. Also, side note, I did want to mention, kids who are raised in being celebrities, that's an entirely different thing. I just feel like as a whole, we need less of that, because I'm sure that can really mess with someone's psyche when their work and their sense of validation and just, that's different. Anyway, if there are any fellow creators who are also watching this video, I just hope some of them remember, even for them, like artists and other creators that they might have been super into, for no negative reason, no personal reason, you just ended up not watching them as much, and just how that has no impact on that creator's actual self-worth. The same thing applies. Just because some people might be floating off into different spaces of the internet, that doesn't change your value as a person. Carrying on the subject of content creation, it's been several years now, especially since the boom of TikTok, where a lot of people just aren't seeing the content from the creators they follow anymore. Even if they have notifications pushed on, if they don't always get notified when someone posts a video. A lot of timelines aren't really in chronological order anymore. And a lot of things on social media sort of operate now as a big For You page. So that is part of why I wanted to make this YouTube video, because I realized there's a lot of people on my Instagram that missed the other one and are gonna miss context for what I'm gonna explain later. So it'll make sense in a second. Sort of delving into the discussion of the state of social media that I said I was considering in my previous YouTube video. I'm someone who's hesitant to ever try to claim that something a newer generation is doing is worse than a previous generation, because that's how it is just through forever, right? I'm sure earlier generations weren't really understanding YouTube, and a lot of times just because you don't understand something that a younger generation is doing, that doesn't mean it's wrong what they're doing, it's just what makes sense to them. And so for most of this time, I've held back on considering that the developments of social media have been making them worse, and just trying to be open-minded. But I do feel like it's gotten to a point where I feel like it's undeniable now that social media and the internet is becoming worse. I feel like the main driving chunk behind that, I do think, is capitalism and consumerism, and how everything is monetized now. If you are not making money, if what you're doing is not producing revenue, is not selling a product, then it gets stuffed down into the abyss, and it's just more ads and more things that are ramping up viewer retention and things like that. Ethan Nestor did a video covering this topic recently. I know there are tons of creators who have been talking about this as of late. So I might include a few clips of certain things Ethan was covering in his video.
It just feels like there's nothing actually happening on the internet anymore. The reason is because it feels like there's less genuine interaction on the internet than it used to be. It's across the board. There are a much higher percentage of bots and AI accounts than there used to be. And so it's starting to feel like the internet is more of a shell of itself now, because we're interacting with less people and there's less life to it. At the beginning of this year, Forbes put out this article about the dead internet theory. It talks about this theory that the internet kind of peaked in 2016. That was the peak of real users before generative AI became more commonly and easily used. And it's gotten to this point now in 2024 where not only are we getting replies from bots all the time, but there's bots and AI that are actually making content. There's a bunch of stuff on TikTok and Reels that's all just AI generated stuff, just trying to get as much traffic as possible. The 2024 Imperva research report revealed that almost 50% of internet traffic comes from non-human sources. Almost half of the stuff that we're ingesting on the internet could not be from an actual person now. I miss when people were making things for genuine reasons, making things for fun rather than making things to try and get more numbers. There's this thought of like, okay, the internet is in a really weird place right now. It's in kind of a really shitty place, and can we revive it? And I think in a way we could. Like, I think that more and more people are seeing how bad the internet is and are wanting out, not necessarily of the internet, but of different platforms. Like, I've seen a lot of people recently transitioning from Twitter to Blue Sky, because they're like, I just don't want to be in this hellhole that Twitter is anymore. And I think that more people are starting to drift back into more homegrown content, if you will, on YouTube. I think people are getting sick of the kind of overproduced, over exaggerated, like Mr. Beastie kind of videos, and people are starting to shift back over. The pendulum is starting to come the other way a little bit, I think. And I would really like to see it swing back to people just making fun content to make fun content.
But also a few days ago, I did see this video pop up in my recommended, and I just decided to watch it. I believe the person speaking in it, I saw in the comments, I think he's 21 years old. So that is Gen Z, right? And it seems like a lot of those people, young, like college students, early 20s, a lot of them are feeling the same way. Like we're all becoming pretty aware that this is just a very toxic landscape. It used to be fun. It did used to be a place where we could connect. It used to be a place where we could be creative and share things. It always had its bad pockets. It always had its own versions of bad energy. But as a whole, now it just feels strange. And it feels like it's encouraging people to limit their critical thinking, literally in the sense that like you can only leave short comments. If something isn't stimulating every single like second, you're just going to swipe to hopefully get to the next dopamine hit. And as he said, it's frying our brains. The person in this video is very well spoken, and I'll let him share some of his thoughts on the matter.
Why do you think all this negativity is being thrown around? Why do you think there's always some new news thread that's making people scared and making people live in fear and making people fight against each other and divide and conquer people? You got men hating on women, women hating on men. People will say anything, but it all comes from wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard. Oh, you think you're this. Oh, you think you're that. People just comment that on your videos, on your picture. You're like, bro, I don't know you. You don't know me. Instead of assuming something about me based off of you being hurt in some certain situation, why not just ask me a question? Instead of you putting these assumptions on people, instead of you projecting how you feel in here, instead of you putting that on people, why not just ask a question? Why not just be a little curious? And people have the time out of their day to go comment that on a video. Why? Because you want to be seen and you want to be heard because you hurt. You hurt. But instead of working on yourself, focusing on yourself, you want to project all that anguish out on other people. Kids, as soon as they born, they get the iPad thrown in front of them. You go to the bathroom, you can't go without your phone. You in the shower scrolling on your phone. You watching something, you eating something, you gotta watch something. You watching something and watching something else. You got your TV on Netflix and then you scrolling on TikTok. Like, it's crazy, bro. It's really crazy how out of touch and out of mind we are. We are really out of touch. We are really out of mind, and it's frying our brains. You can't bring yourself to do anything meaningful because your brain is cooked. All the nasty, crazy things you say online, all the things you do because of the things you consume online, those things have consequences. You're not taking the time out of your day to learn certain skills and be productive. Things you say to people online, say that to somebody facing real life. You're getting your damn wig split. But oh no, you would never say that in person. Why? I don't have that screen to hide behind. But some people are stupid enough to do it. They act the same way they do online in person. In the real world, slap them and they look stupid. Oh, I thought I could ask her, is it pink in her face? What? Come on, bro. Is it pink? All this junk just gets old, bro. There's more to life than all of this.
So it does seem at the end of 2024, social media as a whole is just kind of weird and not actually that enjoyable anymore for both creators and consumers. I am curious and concerned about the youth. What is after Gen Z? Is it Gen Alpha? Anyway, the really young people, because this is their normal. This is all they've known. Does this feel normal to them? Does all of the ads and stimulation and... man. Another layer adding to this is the fact that so many people are very burnt out in several different ways. And they don't really have the will to want to engage in anything that's beyond superficial. That's why I feel like a lot of posts nowadays that have tons and tons of likes, it's usually just a very simple video with white text on it, mentioning something relatable for 6 seconds, and that's it. And I also want to clarify, I'm not talking down on that kind of content. It exists and it's popular for a reason because it's sometimes nice. Like, I'm having a horrible day. This 6-second video, haha, same. It does help our very burnt out society right now. I don't take any issue with that content being popular. And also for my OCs, the content that does the best is just very simple lip syncs to funny audios with funny looking characters. It's a little stress reliever for your mind. So I'm aware when I make and post these YouTube videos, majority of people that follow me on Instagram don't have the bandwidth, or they might be watching at work, or they're in the car waiting for their food. they don't have the bandwidth or the time to follow the link and watch the full YouTube video. I hope this is making sense in me sort of trying to explain how I really don't take audience retention and things like that personally as a creator, just because I'm also a consumer, and I know it's nothing personal. Everybody's just tired. Tired and overstimulated. So this video has two purposes. One, it is just to yap to my full extent for the people who do want to tune in. And for two, it is for the people who might have missed things that I explained in my other video, such as the fact that I am wrapping up my OC content. I intended for the end of 2024 to be the end of me posting majority of my OC content. Back in 2019, 2020, before things really did start getting as ad heavy and as monetized as things are now, I remember one of the things that I really enjoyed watching on TikTok before I became a creator myself was the mafia cosplay stuff that was happening. If people were there, they'll know what I'm talking about. And if it's not the kind of content that you're into, I totally get it. But it was just really neat because everybody was just making their own OCs, and if you were scrolling, you could pick up bits and pieces of a story that everybody was sort of playing in together, and I thought that was really cool. I feel like the OC and cosplay boom on social media started around 2020, and I think it extended into 2022, and by then it was starting to sort of trickle down. And I'd say now it's not what's mainly on social media anymore. A lot of things now I feel like are snippets from podcasts and the earlier content that I mentioned. That's a lot of relatable stuff. And for me, from my perspective, I'm not upset about the changing tides of what people are into on social media, because that's just a fact. It's always going to change. In a couple of years, we'll have another main thing going on around the internet. Before I kind of disappeared for a while because I was dealing with the OSDD stuff, I had already described my intentions of sort of lessening the OC content as I was spending more time learning about music and art and other things. For 2023 into 2024, it was going to just kind of shift naturally in that way, where the OC stuff would kind of die down as I would continue exploring other things. But because I ended up having to take a hiatus for a while, now the transition period is kind of not there anymore. So when I found out that I still had a handful of videos that I had finished filming at the end of 2023 with my OCs, when I came back being aware of the shift in interest in what's on social media right now, I knew posting the OC videos that I still had would more likely than not result in me losing more followers than gaining. But because I don't really have Awaken Moxie with the intention of growing, I just thought of the really kind messages I got from people who mentioned how the OCs helped them, how they found joy in the antics that the OCs were up to, and just having good memories with them. So when I saw those OC videos, I decided I would still post them to wrap up the end of 2024, mainly just as a thank you kind of for the people that did enjoy them and did have a lot of fun with them. So that's what I did. However, since I started posting them again, I got more very kind messages sort of reiterating the same notion, just being happy the OCs were back and whatnot. And so I know no one has ever really left a comment or sent a message that would imply they would want me to keep doing the OCs even if I didn't have an interest in them anymore. No one's really had that kind of energy, but there's a part of me that wishes I had the time to just keep making the OC content, not even for likes, not for views, but just because it makes some people's day better, and these people are really nice, and if it makes you happy, I would like to keep doing it. It's because you've been so nice that I do wish I had more time in the day in existence to do the OCs more. But I just know, given work and studies and what I need to learn how to do through Blender, through music production and things like that, it just wouldn't be feasible. Point number 2 that I wanted to make sure I communicate so people on my Instagram that might not have heard me talk about this before are not alarmed. Most of the OC stuff is silly and wholesome, And if you haven't heard me talk about it before, then it can be a little jarring, but I am fond of content that some people could, I guess, consider to be weirder or darker, more mature themed compared to the OC stuff. I like ARGs, I like independent horror games, I like weirdcore. And that is going to have an influence in the stuff that I try to explore that's more creative, more things that I'm trying to express through music and visuals. So for example, I'll put some things here that I like, that inspire me, that I'm drawn to, and you can kind of see the themes, get the vibe, but these are other things that I like, that I'm also inspired by. And again, you can see the themes and the vibes. Like everyone, my interests span over a lot of different varieties, a lot of different mediums. Another creator that I think is cool is Lixian. He's one of Markiplier's editors, and I think the story of how he became Markiplier's editor is pretty funny. He's capable of doing very many things. He started out as an animator, and then he became an editor. He's had his own gaming channel. He makes music, and he's made games before. He's learned game development. I don't know if my ventures will eventually lead into game development. I feel like given my interests, that would probably make sense, and I feel like I would probably dabble in it a little at some point just to see what it's like and see if it's another way for me to express these things that I have in my head. But it is possible, so we'll see down the line as I continue learning more. Yeah. So to explain a little bit more about the things that I'm trying to make, I guess in my head it's almost like with the multiverse theory. It feels like there is this universe where all of my creative ideas and things like that are actualized. And it's like I'm popping in and out and just trying to bring artifacts of what exists in that universe here through my developing skill set. It's still, I can't make things look as lovely as they do in my head yet because I'm still learning, but that's kind of what I mean. Like in this universe, there is all of these songs that exist, all of these visual pieces that exist, maybe 3D art, maybe like actual, what's it called? When people use 3D printers and things like that, maybe it's clothes, like a lot of different things that exist here that I just want to bring bit by bit that I can in between the time where I have to do work and I have to study. And the more time that I spend learning what exists in this universe, and the more time I spend learning how to translate that through music, film, game development, other mediums, the more eventually the bridge will be built and you can see sort of stuff that exists in my head. So to wrap up 2024, I discovered lots of things about myself. I'm sort of wrapping up with the OCs, and I'd like to start 2025 with these new intentions, these new desires to go forward and learn more things. And for the people who have been here for a while, who are aware of what Unus Annus is, I have this mentality of where I just have to Sauna it. If I have an idea, I have to Sauna it. And I know there are some people who are not going to understand, even with the clip, what that means, but there are people that do, and yes, I have to do that.
God damn it, I've been wanting to say that. No!
Prior things you guys have done, I just wasn't sure if that would be in the repertoire.
Why did you say that?
Evan, what have you done?
I don't know, I'm done talking.
No, it's too late.
Now we have to do a piece on a... God damn it, we have to.
We have to. I know, that's the
God
thing.
damn it, Evan.
Guys, in the future, very soon, you will see a video called Peace On. And just know, destiny has chosen this path for us.
God.
Also, tying back to what I mentioned in my previous video about the fact that I don't typically cringe at a lot of things, it's because I know to make things that you want to make, to have things with a decent quality, you have to start off in a place that seems kind of cringy because you don't know what you're doing. Things are gonna sound bad. You don't know what instruments go where, you don't know what lighting works best when you're filming things, and to a lot of people who are on the outside looking in, it's going to look cringe, but there's no real way to get to where you want to go unless you spend some time in the cringe. So sometimes I'll get people who ask me how I was able to just start Awaken Moxie and how I'm just sort of not really worried about what other people might say. If I try to think back to where this perspective of mine started, I think it was as a way to sort of psych myself out of being scared of horror movies. Because if you think about horror movies and you think about the process that goes into them, it makes it a lot less scary. Yes, there's this big scary monster, but in between filming, they have to sit in this little chair, maybe drink some juice or something, and they're in their full scary makeup. And before all the filming, all the camera angles, all the touch up with makeup, some people could look at that person and go, that's really cringe. But when all of this effort comes together, this effort to polish certain things, then it makes a really cool experience. And so that's why when I think of those things, that's why when I see certain things online that I'm aware other people could cringe at, to me it just kind of seems like, well, maybe if this person scooted their light back an inch, it would look a little bit more professional. Or maybe this person is just starting to learn how to do their makeup, so it's not going to look as pristine as other people who have been doing it for years. There's a lot of things that I want to express better that exist in this universe that I'm trying to build here, but I don't know how to do it yet, and the only way I'll ever get to that point is if I practice and I learn and I go through the cringe. So if you are one of those people who have messaged me before and have mentioned wanting to start something creative, or just wanting to start a new hobby, maybe not even post it online, but you're just sort of held back by what you think other people will think or how you might be perceived, I just feel like in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of pointless to even worry about that. So you should just join me in the Cringe Ball Pit where we'll learn together how to do things. So does that make sense? I hope we can learn together whatever it is we want to learn, and I hope everybody has happy holidays. Thank you so much for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.